What's going on, people? It's your boy LiveWire, and I'm back in the building. Um, Today, something just came across my desk that I couldn't ignore. So, thanks to my boy Boone for posting it up. I forget who this was from. Put the credits down later, but this was on Twitter and from the Crossfire podcast, the Pony podcast, whatever you want to call it. Um, I don't really listen to Mooch anymore because it's just a lot of propaganda. But it's just interesting conversation that he was having with a lot of other like-minded PlayStation individuals, and let's check it out. And I'll comment on it from time to time throughout.
And maybe you could say it better than me, but when I buy a game, like, I'm gonna play it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you won't beat it, maybe you won't platinum it, but I'm gonna play the hell out of it. Now, I bought Starfield, for example. I bought it on Steam because I didn't want to play it at 30 FPS. So I bought it on Steam, and I played 30, 35 hours. Like, I didn't finish it because I didn't really care for it, but I played it. Like,
all right, that is totally valid and fair. There's games that I bought. I bought Mirage. That I didn't buy the Ultimate Edition or whatever, but I bought Mirage, the Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I'm probably still in the first 10 hours. I don't even maybe that, because something else that came out around that time, I think it might have been Alan Wake, just totally captivated me, and I just couldn't get off of Alan Wake to even go back and give Mirage time. So that is totally fair. If that game, if Starfield isn't your bag, it was my bag, but if it isn't your bag, totally understandable. You get me? Let's see what the rest of you got to say.
When I play it on Game Pass, sometimes it's just like, it's just there. And what do people say all the time? Oh, it's on Game Pass, I'll get to it. Our backlogs are already 150 games deep. There's new games coming out every 3 weeks. So when are you going to get to it? You know, I mean, that's my problem.
That's all. That's all. That's a personal thing, because everybody's backlog can be different, and depends on how your spending practice. Depends on it depends on how you play games. Are you a straight, like, I play straight through, or are you someone like me? I'm a grazer. I'm basically enjoying the buffet. I'll play here, I'll play there. Depends on how I'm feeling that day. You know, some weeks I'm all Halo. Halo, 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 Halo. Other weeks I'm like, I just got off a Banisher. I was doing that for a week or so. Before that, I was jumping on some Forza. Before that, I was on to what was I on? Obviously Alan Wake. And then there's a bunch of. Sometimes I'm on my indie kick, and I'm just like indie. So I mean, the one thing I think a lot of these guys don't get is everybody has, like, there's a lot more diverse gamers than the little group that you hang out amongst. Like, some people be like, oh, these are the Japanese gamers, and these are the, are strictly RPG gamers, and then these are the fighting genre guys, and these are the sports guys. Listen, even within that, you have people that you could have a guy who's a sports guy who's also a JRPG guy, right? You could have that, or you could also have someone who's a JRPG guy, who's an RPG guy, but isn't a fighting game guy. But then some guy is a sports and fighting game guy, or some guy's a JRPG and a shooter. Like, it's so different variations. I don't understand why everybody, I want to say everybody, why these guys always want to pigeonhole everything to how I feel must be how a lot of people feel. And that's not the case. Game Pass is there and available for you when you need it. You gotta look at, it's no different than Netflix, man. I don't understand why this concept is so difficult for some guys to understand. Netflix, there's shows on there that I remember when what's the name of that show? Trying to recall the name. The Academy. Was it the Academy? Something like that. With the it's like the kids and they all grew up together, but they have powers. I think it's called the Academy. Um, and that show had been out for like I think a year. Shoot, I just got finished watching Arcane, and that's been out for probably a year. And I looked at it, but I wasn't into watching it at that time. Then I looked at it again. I just wasn't into watching. It just some things you're just not in the mood for at the time that they come out. But then, for whatever reason, you get a bug, it bites you, and then you're like, oh, I'm totally invested. Now I can't wait for the season 2 to come out. And then some things are the opposite. You're totally invested when you're in it, and then some time goes away, and then you come back and you're like, I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it, and it just takes you a long time. Like The Witcher season 3, still haven't finished it. I binged. We binged through the first season, binged through the second season, the third season. I don't even know if we finished the first episode. It's just that we weren't invested into it because now we're on our true crime, true detective, freaking from kick. Like we're into like these mystery kind of supernatural type vibe right now between me and my wife. So it depends on what you're into. But again, I don't understand why these guys always, oh, me, so this is all of us. No, you don't talk for everybody. You don't even talk for the majority. They got to get out of that mindset. I don't understand that. But let's continue.
There's some sort of habit around having that barrier of entry being $50, $60, $70, or even $40, like Helldivers.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's just at no additional cost, or that $14 or $15 or $16 a month, it just becomes a little bit too much to look at 300 games and be like, I'm not necessarily excited. I mean, for the majority of scenarios, I often, to be honest, I was bringing up before that various friends of mine have brought up that they got Game Pass and an Xbox for Persona 3, the remake. Reload. I was
interesting.
I was like, wow, there is something here for some titles to actually get people excited, and it's just interesting that Xbox won't capitalize on that from an internal development perspective. Really get a developer and say, let's commit to a 10-year cycle. Have them make some trilogy or reinvent some old IPs and something like this. So I think
this is the thing.
All right. This is the thing. We don't know if they've decided to do that. It's still early. This is the thing that kills me with these guys, man. They act like these games have been. We've had a full cycle of Game Pass originals just completely go through. Like, no, we haven't. We've got a couple of games that were already in development that got put into Game Pass, but we haven't had any games, as far as we know, that were Game Pass focused. Like, oh, these games are specifically made to, quench the thirst of our subscribers in Game Pass. Like, I don't know how many years we had Netflix before we actually got a lot of Netflix originals. I mean, shoot, you gotta. Stranger Things was the biggest one we got. Now you get originals all the time, but before that, there weren't that many, and we didn't get after Stranger Things. It wasn't like it was like an instant snowball effect. It still took some time before you got it where one of the biggest shows on Netflix was a show that they didn't even speak English on, as Squid Games, all dubbed. One biggest Netflix show in the world. Couldn't, unless you were Korean, you didn't know what they were saying if you didn't read the subtitles. But it became huge, because of what they offer with Squid Games and how it's presented. Like, I think like people have this ideology of the old and how it was, And even though we've gone through changes our throughout our lives, as far as like, all right, Toys R Us isn't here, and you know, GameStop is dying, and Best Buy doesn't even have a lot of physical games or movies. We see all these things and we understand all these things, but yet there's some of us that just have a hard time coming to grips with those things, and instead of accepting reality for what it is, they want to cry about what it should be, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense, because evolution, you're always going to evolve. There's no jack on my phone. I don't. Where's my phone at? I have no place. No, I have no place to plug in headphones on this Samsung Galaxy 24, whatever it is, 24 plus. But I have no place to plug in a headphone jack. It is what it is. I had to get Raycons, and this is like I got a Raycon, and I had something else before that, and with my other cell phone. So, I don't understand this constant. It's a lot of these guys that are struggling. Like, we all understand that when we started gaming, I was like 5 years old. Now I'm 43. There's a lot that has changed in my life, other than me physically growing up. So this idea that everything should stay the same, or gaming should stay the same as it was in my mind, but everything else should change, is I don't get it. I don't get it. But you got people that struggle out here coping for whatever reason.
Liza P was an incredible get for them. I think the Ninja Turtles game was an incredible get. Persona 3 was an incredible get for them. But what is the distance of releases between those games? Like, you could highlight the great things for Game Pass, and that's where it shows its value. When there's great games that are in the service, that's like, oh, wow, I was going to buy that. Oh, I'm interested in that, and it shows up in Game Pass. The problem is that it has not been as consistent as it should be. And that's where the challenge is like, do you stay subscribed, or you jump on when something's there and jump off? That's kind of how I use it.
All right, I call bullshit. Here's the thing. Now, this is my library. This isn't in Game Pass. I guess that's just because it's what I have in my library. But Game Pass drops games all the time. It just does. I mean, we recently got Dying Light. I don't know if it's on here. I mean, not Dying Light. Dead Island 2. Out of nowhere. They didn't even announce that it was going to be part of Game Pass. See, that's the thing. If you people that stay in the know on Game Pass know, they're going to give you about 3 to 4 lists a month of games coming out. And then on top of that, you're going to get games that just come in there. Not going to know that it's going to come. NBA 2K recently wasn't listed on the list of games they were getting. It just dropped into there. So this idea that, like we don't get quality games, but once in a blue moon, is just ridiculous. Like, Liza P is great, right? It's a great game. And like many games, it's not going to be for everybody. I totally get that. I don't know why these people don't get that. A game that you might have overlooked because it wasn't something you cared about doesn't mean that someone else was like Jusant. They might not have cared about Jusant, right? Someone else might have thought that was one of the best games that came out last year, at the end of the year, right? They might have been totally on Liza P. Oh, why is there nothing else? But you had Jusant. You had all these other games that came out. So this idea, I would put it this way for a lot of these guys. Imagine if you could rent a car the same way that you got Game Pass. You pay a subscription and you just rent a car, when they come out, and, when they're ready to release, and you could just rent it, right? Every car that you rent isn't necessarily going to be a car that you like. It could be a fancy car. It could be beautiful. It could be just like Liza P. Say it's a Maserati or something, right? Now I'm 6'6". Most of these sports cars aren't for me. I can barely. I remember trying to drive a Corvette, and that's not even the size of a Maserati. But I was trying to drive a Corvette because my friend's dad had one. And he was just like, "Oh, I need you to move it out the driveway." So I'm like, "All right, cool." I'd get in the driver's seat. My knees can't get past the dashboard, dog. I'm barely able to touch my toes on the pedal because my knees are being blocked by the dashboard. So I can never drive that car comfortably. Like if I could, it would be a very uncomfortable feel for that car, right? And for someone that might be Lives of P. It could be a beautiful car. It looks amazing. Oh, this car looks amazing. But it's just terribly uncomfortable for me to play, to drive around with. So and for some, that could be Liza P. Looks beautiful, but that gameplay style just isn't their cup of tea. It ain't their bag. And people need to understand that. Persona, very pretty game, all of them. The most time I've played in was probably 5, right? But again, it didn't hold my attention but so long because other things came out, and it's cool, but I'm not a turn-based guy. I dialed that bad boy all the way down to easy because I just wanted to get it over and done with. I don't feel like fighting and going back and forth. Oh, now my life's low. I gotta figure out. Oh, I lost. Now I gotta start over. No, I didn't care about none of that. I have no control. Just put it on easy and let me just mow through this. All I care about is the story, right? But you know, to each their own. Some people love Persona games, and that's cool too. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Like dude said, a lot of his friends bought an Xbox just to play Persona because you get not only you get it on Game Pass, but you get it on Game Pass for the next however many months. They got DLC coming out for it via Game Pass. Cool, you know. Ain't nothing wrong with that, and you could easily play it on the Series S, and Persona ain't no demanding game like that. So there you go, 4K or 1440p, 60 FPS. You know that's gonna do that easy on the Series S. So, but let's continue. Hold on.
Use Game Pass. If there's something I'm interested in, I jump on and play it like that. But the thing is I'm not gonna say it's a bad service. My always issue with the Game Pass was the first party quality. Will that suffer being launched in a subscription service? And I think we've seen the results of that
far, the
with
answer
Halo and a bunch of other games where they're not ready for prime time and they just get put in there. Also,
all right. Yes and no. Yes and no. I know Halo is just like a whipping boy. Like they just like going back to Halo, and we understand. It's hard because again, you're talking about a game that came out during the pandemic time, right? So we don't know in what it would look like today coming out versus when it came out at the time it came out, right? But we do know you can't just pin that. Oh well, Xbox, they don't let the quality of the game because of certain things and blah blah blah. Okay, Horizon Forbidden West came out during the pandemic time, suffered bugs galore, especially in comparison to the original. God of War Ragnarok, the same thing. Not as bad as Horizon Forbidden West, but still a lot buggier than God of War 2018. And Spider-Man was worse than both of them because that one you turned into a cube and swung around the city and fell through the map. Listen, a lot and that one's an odd one because it's not necessarily in pandemic times. It was I don't know if it was I don't know. Whatever the reason is, obviously the quality suffered for whatever reason. So yes, Halo struggled at its launch It took a year and a half to get its footing, but let's not act like Halo having its struggle for a year and a half is the same thing that would happen is any different, I should say, than what happened with Spider-Man, Horizon, and God of War. It's the same thing. For whatever reason, they just pushed it out and just said let it live on its own. Now, the only difference is Xbox doesn't. I keep on moving out the camera. Xbox doesn't have the grace that PlayStation has. So when Horizon comes out and it is a buggy mess, reviewers fail to have that to divulge that information to the masses, and we don't realize what we're getting until we have it in our hands. Same thing with God of War. Spider-Man, the most egregious one, because it's the one that got the highest, I believe the highest score. I don't know if it was higher than God of War. It might not have been, as far as review scores, but it was blatantly disregarded as like, oh, those bugs could be patched in, and that's what they did not mention that. They blamed the game was broken because of some day one patch. But if it was so easily broken by a day one patch, why couldn't it be so easily corrected by a day one patch? It took literally months for them to fix a lot of those bugs. So again, they have selective criticism, selective memory on a lot of these things. But again, that is also part of what the whole Xbox tax is. So that a lot of them, try to deny.
Also see the marketing, the excitement, getting you enticed to buy the game is very subdued when it's going into Game Pass. They changed their whole tune when they're putting that stuff on PlayStation. Man, promotions, interviews with the rad devs talking about how excited they are, content updates coming out ready for launch for the PS5. It was a totally different thing when you...
False. Because you don't pay attention doesn't mean it doesn't happen. False, 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 false. Because you decide to not pay attention when it happens for Xbox doesn't mean it's not happening. That, again, this is the argument I have with Bone. And Bone's my dude. And I said, I understand why Xbox is doing what they're doing. I don't like it, but I understand it because of the situation that they're in. The media has have basically kicked their backs in. You have the Xbox tax. You have people that literally have told you why they give Xbox games lower scores, and then people still try to cap. Oh well, it's only that one individual. No, that's that one individual that says it, bro. We sit here and talk about how many refs possibly skew the numbers of the games by calling fouls and flags and blah 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 blah, and we say all these things, and nobody says, oh well, that's just this one guy. No. Just because it's the guy that got caught or the guy that they pushed out in front doesn't mean that it's one guy, one person, right? Don't be that gullible. Nobody's saying it's everybody, but let's not act like it's just one, because it ain't. So with that being said, they have a perception issue. Because people can choose to ignore. Once it was a video that a guy, he saw Perfect Dark and was so excited. Oh my God, Perfect Dark, I can't wait. And it said Xbox. Oh, it's on Xbox. Why is it on Xbox? Because of the perception. You don't have an Xbox. You're not thinking about getting an Xbox. I mean, and that's no different than what Marvel had it when Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 came out and it was only on Switch. There were people that said the same thing. So don't have it where it's like, oh, it's only an Xbox thing. People saw it and be like, oh, I can't wait. And then it said Switch. And I'm like, I don't want to get a Switch. And a lot of people did it because that game didn't sell. A lot of people did it. Like, as much as the Switch sells for, because it's Nintendo, a lot of people buy that stuff for Nintendo. They don't necessarily buy it for third party because they know, for whatever reason, third party make their games, but they don't make their games specifically based on, making the Switch be, give you that full experience, because it's limited. It is what it is. I mean, it's hard. Like, you make a game, you make a big game based on what you know, what you want, and you don't want to dumb it down to put it on the Switch. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, people ignore it. People will ignore like you don't see it. I mean, it's no different than Baldur's Gate 3. People did not care about Baldur's Gate 3 when it was a Stadia only game. Like, maybe PC guys cared. Maybe. But, that's hard to even say because, again, they didn't talk about it a lot until that game actually released coming to Steam. When they knew it was coming to Steam, that's when it really, really, really blew up. But when it was Stadia only, best to believe that narrative around that game wasn't like, oh, this game is going to be all this and all that. It was not. And even if the game came out exactly how it came out and got the amazing scores that it came out, you think that game would have saved Stadia? Hell no, because it would have been there all by itself. Maybe people would have tried it for that time. But, by itself, no, man. And this is the thing that, like, Xbox right now is trying to fight a narrative. Shoot, they're fighting a narrative daily. Because people coming out here, now you got all these disgruntled Xbox dudes along with PlayStation guys that are, and Xbox haters that are just doing articles and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, man. It's like a daily fight for them. So, listen. They gotta do the best that they can do to stay in the news, stay relevant, and they'll never bring everything over because it's like it's impossible. I mean, because there's no one that freaking actually port all Xbox games over. It's just not. But at some point they'll have some version of whatever. I'm sure on everything. Everybody, it's all going to be on PlayStation, but I don't know because I don't know if PlayStation is going to be around. They're dealing with their own problems right now, so we don't know in what capacity PlayStation is going to be. Like if PlayStation turns around and pulls we don't believe in generations, and then they do that with their console and be like, well, we don't believe in platforms, and decide that you're going to just be a launcher on PC and everything. I'm not saying that that's absolutely going to happen, but we don't know. There's a lot of things we never thought that, not a day, like up until Jim Ryan pulled the trigger and did it, we did not know that they was going to be making 12 live service games. 12? We thought maybe like 1, 2, 3, 12? Like, that's a lot. Like, why so drastic? Like, the overcorrection, like, they just tried to throw a bunch of grenades in the water hoping to catch fish. Like, I get it, but it's a lot. And right now they're suffering because they delved out a lot of money to do that. And you can't just be like, okay, money into this to do this, and then turn around and be like, oh, that's not working. All right, y'all got to make us a game. Games don't take a year or two development anymore. It's like 4 to 5, well, probably 4 to 7, depending on the type of game you're talking about, unless you want to get a much smaller game like an indie. But even freaking writing for it take about almost a year. So, but let's continue.
You're selling the game to somebody, but when it was in Game Pass, it's like, yeah, put it out with 3 missions. We'll figure it out later.
A lot of people, a lot of people don't understand this. Shout out to, I think it's NYX. He says here in the chat, he says, that's why I gave up on Game Pass. It made my backlog even bigger. I'd rather just buy games and play them at my own pace. That's the thing when it comes down to it. You know what I mean? Shout out to Kratos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, that's like what I said before. That's all preference. Like, if you're a person that only plays one game at a time, then okay, that's totally fine. But if you're not and you like to delve in a lot of different experiences, that doesn't benefit you at all. So, I mean, that's much of saying a whole bunch of nothing, because that's like someone saying, like, I like peanut butter sauce on my cookies and ice cream. I'm like, all right, that's great. If you like peanut butter like sauce, that's great. But if you don't, and if you especially don't like it on cookies and ice cream, then what does that even mean? Oh, well, it's supposed to be a better experience. Yeah, but for whom? Like, who are you talking about? Who is this for? Like, you can talk about yourself, maybe someone else, but again, it's not for everyone. So, like, this whole idea that they have in their head, oh, I think like this, so you should think like this. Like, no, no. Like, don't be mad if someone doesn't think your wife's as attractive as you think your wife is. It's okay. You married her. You happy with her. I hope, I assume. So that's the only thing that should matter to you. It shouldn't matter what the next guy thinks, you know, unless you're insecure about your decision. And that's a very personal problem, isn't it?
Shut the
Yeah, I'm even seeing that with the PlayStation one. Like, you know, they're just throwing games in there, and I'm like, I can't even use this stuff.
That's why, I asked that.
You know?
I asked that question. I got a lot of responses. By the way, shout out to everybody in the community. I appreciate all the responses and the in-depth answers. I asked, is that Immortals game that's going into PS Plus? Is that a good game? I asked because I saw a lot of mixed, like, not mixed reviews. Forget about meta for a second.
This is the thing I don't get. He has a question about Immortals going into PlayStation Plus. If you have PlayStation Plus, what does it matter? What does it matter? Try it. Oh, I don't like it. All right, next game. Oh my God, that was too easy. Why is that so easy? Because it's that simple. I don't need anybody's opinion about a game I'm not buying that's already in a service that I already have access to. Why do I care? I download it and I figure that out. Shoot. Some of these subscription services you don't even have to download. You can just stream it like on Gamepass. You can stream it. Nah, not for me. Pass. Keep it moving. Why? Why do I need to know someone else's perspective on something that I already have access to? I understand reviews for something that I have to pay money for. But if I already have access to it, why do I care? That's no different than any show that's on Prime, Apple, Netflix. If I already have access to the show, if someone tells me it's good, I simply try it. If I like it, cool, I'm in. If I don't like it, tried it, wasn't for me, kept it moving. Some people say, oh, you gotta get past the first 3 episodes and blah blah blah. All right, that's if you want to try it. That's what, like he said, I did 30 hours of Starfield, still didn't like it. All right. Why would you do that instead of using Game Pass? Oh, well, it was 60 versus 30. All right. I mean, if you want to pay $70 to figure out you want to like game versus just, well, hold up. He could have played that on it. What? You know what? That was just dumb. That's just dumb. Now I'm thinking about it, that is dumb. If he has Game Pass, he could have just played it on PC Game Pass at 60 and then determine after 30 hours if he liked it or not. I go back and what he said before, that was stupid. It was dumb. That don't make no sense. Like, man, this guy, man. But I digress.
I saw gamers mixed opinions on that game. Is this a game that I want to take a sidestep and play a little bit? And I got a really good answer from the community. A lot of people responded to that. I was amazed. But like you said, this doesn't just pertain to Game Pass. This is for PS Plus as well. Like, they throw games in there. I don't necessarily just stop playing. I'm not stopping Helldivers 2. I'm not stopping Final Fantasy. And I'm not stopping my run through Elden Ring before the DLC comes to go play Immortals probably. You know what I mean? So it's not just a bash on Game Pass. It's just, why do I want to pay that $16.99 a month? Which I firmly believe as we progress through 24 into 25 at some point, that's going to go up again probably to almost $19.99.
Again, it's an option. Like, if you know that you're someone who only can really focus on what you focus on, and your bandwidth isn't that strong, then I don't even know why this is even an issue. I'm gonna be honest. It's almost like someone fighting the FOMO of I gotta partake, but I know that I can't really partake because I'm already invested in something else that I'm doing. Then stay invested in it. Like, man, when I was playing Banishers, I pretty much only played Banishers. Freaking Halo had just launched the new season, not season, the operation, because it came out around, I think, a little bit after Banishers dropped. So the operation came out, and instead of like gunning through the operation like my boys were doing, I was playing Banishers. I was invested, you know. But that was for me. My boys didn't. Flip ain't jump on. Bone didn't jump on and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna get Banishers too." They were invested in playing the Halo. All right. And then when I was done with Banishers, then I jumped on and finished my operation, battle pass and all that stuff with Halo. So, you know, I don't get their hang-ups about Game Pass. It's an option for people for various reasons. You have people that can't afford to buy games that like that, so that's an option. And that's what Game Pass is an option for. You have people that just like to dabble in a lot of games. Game Pass is an option for that. Game Pass is an option for people that do buy a lot of games, do dabble in a lot of games, but just, you know, financial bandwidth is just like, man, I got to make some real smart decisions, because listen, I don't care how rich or poor you are. You shouldn't be buying every single game that comes out. One, you can't play it when it comes out, so it's not even worth the money that you're spending on it at the time. It doesn't make sense. You're going to buy it just to have it, but not actually play it. What is the point? If that's the case, and you think it's such a smart financial investment, why don't you, next time you go to a movie theater, buy some tickets and just put them in your pocket and go home? Oh, what does it matter? You can afford to do it. Oh, but that's just stupid. Why would anybody do it? No. If you can afford to buy a game and have it sit on the shelf collecting dust, and it doesn't matter to you, and someone says, I don't think that's a smart financial investment, you're like, well, what are you, poor? Then next time, why don't you just go to the movies like that? I'm going to go to the movie theater, buy some tickets, put them in my pocket, and then send my ass home. What is the difference? Wait for it to come on a streaming service by the time you get it, because that's the value of the game that you just bought for $60, $70 that you get to a year later that now is $15. I'm just saying, make it make sense, people. Make it make sense. Like, I don't mean to be so loud and animated, but then I've been thinking about I should dye my beard. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, because it's making me starting to look a little bit older than I am. But I don't know. I'm 50-50 on it. I'm 50-50 on it. But listen, man. Gaming is about to change. People got to deal with it. Shoot, Xbox not about to be a console that only has Xbox storing it. I mean, from what we're hearing, so it's going to be very, very, very interesting to see how this progresses. But I'll say this: whatever Xbox does, PlayStation going to follow, which is why PlayStation fanboys are so scared and upset. Because best believe, if Xbox opens their console to Steam games and Epic games and all that, and that hardware moves. Now, if the hardware stays the same and it don't move, then, PlayStation will do what they do. But if it moves, if they see a significant swing in the people that are buying hardware, if they see a significant swing in the market of open consoles, because most of the time when you think console, you think the closed platform. But you're talking about an open console. You're talking about a market with an open console that opens up. You think PlayStation gonna just stand back, be like, nah, we just gonna keep our store and just be PlayStation only, and yeah, you can go over Xbox and play all our games on Steam or Epic or whatever. But I mean, if you want the premier Rumble Pack, breathe on the controller feature, you gotta play it here. You know, sort of, maybe, not really, because a lot of that stuff is still in the game on PC. So, but, you know, it is what it is, man. Anyway, it's your boy Livewire. I digress. This has been The Retort, and I'll holler at y'all later, man. Peace. Stay easy.